to a welcome to this edition of Battle in the Trenches, brought to you by Climb the Pocket. I'm your host, as always, Jonders, and I'm going to introduce my two other people. But before I do that, hey, make sure you hit the subscribe button, click the bell to make sure you're notified. Also, if you're a fan of the show and you sent me some socks, Simpsons socks in the mail, A, how did you get my address? B, thank you, they're delightful. All right, now let's get to our panelist, our fine panel, our five-star panel. We're going to start with Ryan McGinley. Ryan McGinley, did you send me the socks?
No, but this is like the best murder mystery of all time. You trying to figure out who these socks are from, because honestly, those are pretty sweet socks, and I wish I sent them to myself.
Socks, yeah. All right, Steve, did you send me the Homer Simpson socks?
I didn't send you the socks, but I agree. They're definitely pretty cool. They're very festive. I'd really like to wear those right now.
Well, you're not going to wear them. They're my socks.
I know.
Hey, let's go to the doctor's office. Hey, so in my notes, okay, so Steve, can you help me out here? What happened in the doctor's office? I remember Evans had a what did he have? He had a non-contact thing.
He had a hammy. It looked very painful. Luckily, it was Evans' only catch of the game for a 60-yard touchdown, so he definitely bailed you out in fantasy matchups. But he's most likely going to miss the rest of the season. He looked like he was in a lot of pain going into the end zone, grabbing that hamstring. Wasn't able to walk off the field without going down. Definitely don't like to see it, but hey, Evans got you to where you are. Hopefully he got you a win in your playoffs matchups this week, but he's a guy you're going to want to drop if you got to pick someone up off the waiver or defense for next week. You could feel pretty safe dropping him off your team.
How about Devontae Parker? I don't even know what happened to him. What happened to him?
He got concussed. The number one wide receiver in Miami went down with a big-time concussion. He only had 2 catches for, 20 or so yards. So losing him probably meant you might have lost your matchup, which is unfortunate. But if you survived, hopefully he's back by the end of the week.
We're going to stick with Ron McGinley. Alshon Jeffrey just got embarrassed on Monday night. What happened?
Listen, the Birds were great. Find a new slant. It was a tremendous game.
Congratulations on beating Eli Manning in 2019.
I'm sorry. Did the
3 weeks away from 2020.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did the Seahawks win this week, Jonders?
Oh, here we go.
Do we play Eli Manning in the year of our Lord 2020, basically? No.
Listen, Eli's wife even showed up to the game. Peyton was in the box. He took up the entire box with that big old forehead. They were having a great time. And, the bookie Eli ran out of oil at the end of the game, so it was fine. Go Birds. Alshon Jeffrey's done for the year, though. So Greg Ward, the old Houston quarterback, is essentially the wide receiver 1A with J.J. Arcega-Whiteside as the 1B. And I expect him to bring somebody in, probably Sony Michel's brother, Markin. He will be in camp. Oh, he was in camp, and then he was a practice squad guy. He'll be an official Eagle, I'm sure, this week.
Rashard Penny had that non-contact injury against the Rams on Sunday night, as Ryan just alluded to that game. I've tried donating my ACL to him, but the Seahawks have said that's a no-go, and he is out for the remainder of the year. Who's Jacobs? What Jacobs is injured? Why is he on this list?
It's Josh Jacobs.
Yes. All right.
Surprise inactive last week. Well, not surprise, but definitely game time inactive. He's obviously dealing with a fracture in his shoulder, so we don't know if he's going to be back out there, but DeAndre Washington was able to take his place, so it's kind of a thing you got to monitor. Just be prepared to have him not in your matchups for this week if you survived last week without him.
After thinking about Eli Manning, you know what Jacobs I think of? Brandon Jacobs from 2009. Dear Lord.
You're really dating yourself there.
What?
You're really dating yourself there, John. It's 2009.
Some of our listeners, or some of our viewers remember 2009, back when they were in their 40s. That's right.
Shout out.
So if you made it this far, you're in your semifinals, and we have 2 guys who are going to help you go over the purge and get you to the championship. So let's start off with Steve. Who are you starting at quarterback?
So it's a semifinal, so you no longer have to. I just want to spit this out there. You don't have to start your studs every week necessarily. There are guys you can pick off the waiver that are in a perfect spot start, and you throw them in your lineup, and that can get you the win if you think that they're going to go off this week. So feel free to put a guy on the bench that is a big name, but it's tough to put in there in the regular season on your bench, but you could do it now. It's win or go home. So for quarterbacks, Jared Goff coming off a game against the Seahawks and the Cardinals, throwing for tons of yards. Robert Woods is getting going. Tyler Higbee, the whole offense is getting going. So I like him to continue this week against Dallas, who's been just gave up a big game to Mitch Trubisky. So I definitely like Jared Goff this week. And Ryan Tannehill fantasy hero. He's been a top quarterback in the league, since he became the starter in Tennessee. And he gets Houston this week, and they're not a defense to be afraid of. They just gave up a huge game against Locke, so they get Houston at home. I love him. I think he can be, like I said, a fantasy hero for your team. Throw him in your lineup over lots of guys this week.
Steve, do you want a job as a comedy writer? Because if you do, I need some more writers in my comedy room. We're putting on a show at the IO Theater December 29th at 7:30 p.m. I'll be missing Seahawks at 49ers. Provide the world with laughter. I do like Ryan Tannehill, though. I think that's a great start. All right, anyways, Ryan, who are you starting?
Well, I'm starting the guy that probably should have had all the confidence in the world with his good looks, but it wasn't quite there yet going into the season. But after a big win in New Orleans, Jimmy G should have all the confidence in the world against any team. So I'm starting Jimmy G against Atlanta. The Emmanuel Sanders trade might have honestly made them one of the top 2 favorites in the NFC. I know you don't like to hear that, but that offense looked great with Emmanuel Sanders being the feature, and then George Kittle did all the heavy work. So as long as Jimmy G gets the ball out, he's going to be eating. He's just a good quarterback, and I'm excited to start him. And I'm going back to my old guy. I'm going back to Baker Mayfield in Arizona, because Arizona has a terrible defense, and I know that they seem like a team that should be down and out, but they've got something to play for. Baker Mayfield doesn't seem like a pack-it-in type of guy, and Odell's kind of playing for his future, seemingly. We don't know what his value is going to be on the trade market, so I think Odell's going to be playing for as an open tryout, essentially, so I'm definitely playing Baker this week.
Is there a gas leak or something? What is happening? Steve, I'm giving you the touchdown. I don't know what happened. Can we get to your quarterback sits now?
Quarterback sits. I am sitting Carson Wentz at Washington. Obviously, that Monday night game wasn't anything too beautiful. He had a couple of good touchdown passes to Zach Ertz and whatnot, but they just don't have any receivers. With Alshon going down, right when he comes back, his reliable receiver, he goes right back down, and they got guys out there that most NFL football fans have never heard of unless you're an Eagles fan like Ryan here. So Wentz, even in a plus matchup at Washington, I think you got to temper your expectations pretty low, and there's probably plenty of other guys you'd rather start over Wentz this week. I'm also sitting Matt Ryan at San Francisco. Just lost Calvin Ridley for the year. Sure, they have Julio, but he hasn't been doing too much. Going to San Francisco, that's definitely going to be a pretty hard matchup going across the country against San Francisco, whose defense is, obviously gave up a lot of points in that shootout against New Orleans, but in any shootout, your defense can, kind of look worse than it actually is. They've been pretty good up to this point. I think they're going to have a bounce-back defensive game against the Falcons.
All right, Ryan.
I mean, honestly, Steve's feels like a personal attack. After the Eagles are 100% Super Bowl bound, that hurts. So, because Steve's attacking me and my happiness, I'm going to tell you to sit his quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, against the Chicago Bears. Because I don't like what I've seen out of Rodgers. I think that they need to rely on the run game. And like Steve said, you don't have to start your studs every week. And Aaron Rodgers hasn't really been a stud for you. So if you can get a Ryan Tannehill, I would rather start him. Honestly, I'm rather starting Baker Mayfield over Aaron Rodgers this week just because I really don't like that matchup. I understand Rodgers has had magic against the Bears.
State Farm versus Progressive.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm heavily out on Aaron Rodgers this week. I'm also sitting Josh Allen against the Pittsburgh Steelers just because the Pittsburgh Steelers are riding their defense to the playoffs. I mean, that's the formula that they're going to try to use. Josh Allen was kind of suspect against a solid defense last week in Baltimore, and I don't think that they're going to make it easy on him. I think that TJ Watt is a very solid chance of being the defensive player of the year, and Minkah Fitzpatrick has changed the entire look of that defense. Not to mention Bud Dupree's been great off the edge too. So I don't like Josh Allen.
I like saying Bud Dupree.
I know, it's an elite name. Like, I want him to win awards because his name's Bud Dupree. But
Bud Dupree.
Yeah, and I know that Josh Allen's a sexy play with the run. He is. He's a good play fantasy-wise because he runs the ball, but I don't think it's going to be
sexy.
Look at him. He's, 24, young, he's got all his hair.
He's a good-looking guy.
Yeah,
Hey, talking about good-looking guys, you called Aaron Rodgers a stud. What do you think his stud fee would be if he was a horse?
Listen, I don't live in the middle part of the country like you two, so I don't know how much
It's called Midwest.
Midwest.
All right.
That does not make any sense to me because you guys are in the middle of the country. Like I feel like the middle of California should be the Midwest, but you know.
So I think I prematurely gave Steve a touchdown. Now I'm giving him a touchdown. So it's 7-0 right now. Let's move on to running backs. Ryan, we'll give you a chance to start first because you're scoreless. You have no score.
That's fine. I'm starting. Raheem must start.
Was it weird when I asked about Aaron Rodgers' stud fee? Was that a weird thing to bring up?
I mean, listen, I don't know how many hands or what the measurement for stud fees would be there. So, like, you know.
All right, you just go on with your running backs. Running back starts.
I'm starting Raheem Mostert against the Atlanta Falcons because he's been the best running back in San Fran. San Fran. Been the best running back. Dude,
what is happening right now?
Dude, what is There's a lot of running backs there in and out of the lineup. We don't know what team he actually plays.
They're playing against Atlanta. You got me all confused with the stud fees. I know he plays for San Francisco. It's been a long season. He was an ex-Eagle. Raheem Mostert. He's the best running back for Kyle Shanahan, who used to coach for Atlanta.
Mostert?
Yeah, he's really solid.
Mostert.
Must start.
Yeah, must start. You gotta start.
Must start.
All
right.
Since
I get the credit for that.
Yeah, Steve does get the credit for that. That's a good one.
Listen, anyway, since
Steve, you want to give us your running back start?
No. Let's hear from Ryan.
Since becoming the main guy, he leads the league in yards per carry, ahead of guys like Lamar Jackson and Russell Wilson, which is tough to do for running back. He's been dynamic in the passing game, and he's been housing a bunch of things. I mean, he's been a solid TD guy. So I like. Are you not watching San Francisco games? Because he's a stud, and you need to at least hone in a little bit. Also,
you know, if he's a solid TD guy, we should shorten that up and just call him an STD.
Oh, brother. Well, I'm starting Sony Michel as well against I'm starting. You know why? Because Bill Belichick had to deal with nonsense all week. So I'm starting.
What would you have to know? What would you know about dealing with nonsense?
Listen, I don't need slander, which is what's happening to me right now, and I understand Bill Belichick is probably getting slandered throughout the media because he sent some random intern to videotape the one and whatever Bengals, which is a terrible idea. So I think what they're going to do is they're going to hand the ball off to Sony Michel 1,000 times and say, hey, look, this is an easy win. So I think it's going to be a Michel game. So I would start Sony Michel. I think he gets in the end zone twice.
Steve, can you tell us who to start running back, please?
Yeah, I'm starting Adrian Peterson versus Philly. I understand Philly's got a pretty good defensive
front.
What
year is this? Adrian
I
Peterson,
know.
Eli Manning,
with
Belichick has been tape recording practices. What year is this?
Guys going down with that knee sprain, man. I mean, Peterson's going right back into a volume role, and we saw it last game. Got tons of carries. You know he's good for 20 carries in this game, even against Philly. Adrian Peterson just seems to get done. So I like Adrian Peterson. And DeAndre Washington, I mentioned him earlier, going against Jacksonville, who is one of the worst run defenses in the league. And DeAndre Washington saw 20-plus carries, over 100 yards, and found the end zone. So if Josh Jacobs is out with that shoulder issue, DeAndre Washington can go right back in your lineup. And I think like another player I mentioned earlier can be a fantasy hero for your team. That's what it's about in Week 15, putting those spot starts. Your lineup never really looks great in Week 15. Usually playing guys off the waiver or whatever. Spot starts to try to get that win and move on to the championship.
All right, let's go to running back sits now. Ryan, can you tell us who we're not starting, who we're staying away from, who we're terrified of putting in our starting roster?
Yeah, so I am sitting Devonta Freeman against the San Francisco 49ers. He does not play for them like the faux pas I just had 5 minutes ago. So I'm sitting him because that defensive front is elite. I don't love the fact that team's dead to rights. I think that team's done with. They're going to make the running game beat them because they'll be able to double Julio, and then the other wide receivers in Atlanta are like Russell Gage and like the ghost of Taylor Gabriel. So I fully expect them to have Devonta Freeman get smoked. I don't want him in my lineup at all. I'm also sitting Kenyon Drake just because David Johnson kind of reappeared this last week. So I think that Drake is going to kind of see his big role get diminished into a medium-sized role where he's not the main guy. And on a team that doesn't seem to score enough points, I don't want to start a guy that's not the main back. So
love the Drake. Hey, I think he said that team is dead to rights.
Yeah, they're dead.
I don't think that's how. That
listen,
goes.
I don't know.
Who wins the touchdown?
Listen, you didn't even say. Did you say your sits?
No, Steve, say your sits.
I'll go to my sits. I'm sitting Benny Snell. Hey, what? I'll go with the sits. I'm going Benny Snell versus Buffalo in that game where he said he's sitting Josh Allen. I think this whole game's just going to be kind of low scoring. I'm thinking under 40 points. Benny Snell couldn't get it done for you last week. I don't think he gets it done for you this week. Buffalo isn't that great against the run, but I don't see Benny Snell carrying the team in this one. I'm not a fan of Duck Hodges running the team. Sorry, Dan. I just don't think he's a very good quarterback. I don't think the team gets moving up and down the field, especially against Buffalo, who's a respectable defense overall. So I'm sitting Benny Snell. And Le'Veon Bell. Like I said, you might have to sit some of your studs, and Le'Veon Bell is a very considerable option to sit this week. Going at Baltimore, certainly one of his worst matchups of the year. That team's going to, probably roll over them. And Le'Veon Bell was sick last week. He probably isn't going to be practicing a full week and whatnot, coming off the flu. He was out bowling on Saturday night, so maybe he was getting better pretty early, before the game and whatnot. But he's a guy, if he was on my team, I would definitely be looking for other options. He'd be a flex play at best on my team.
Steve gets the touchdown. Touchdown, Steve!
Listen, he told you to start Gilgamesh against the Eagles and then told you to sit a sick guy. This is under protest. This is garbage.
Let's move on to the wide receivers.
Yeah, we can move on to the wide receivers. Ryan, since you like to flap your gums so much, why don't you tell us who to start at wide receiver?
Well, I'm starting Terry McLaurin against the Philadelphia Eagles because...
Oh, Terry McLaurin.
Because...
Terry McLaurin. Oh, the old Irish poet, Terry McLaurin.
I don't think he's Irish, if I had to guess. But second week in a row, the Eagles are going to get absolutely toasted by a rookie wide receiver. So... I'm fully expecting him.
Yeah, what was the name of that guy in the Giants? What was his name? Slayton?
Yep. They called the Giants once tweeted at him and called him Big Play Slay, so that I was fully out on him then. But he gave him 150 yards and 2 touchdowns.
That has that nickname already.
Yeah, they called him Big Play Slay. 2 touchdowns and 150 yards from Slayton. So after McLaurin seemingly refound the connection with Dwayne Haskins last week on that sick Spider-Man looking catch, where he turned around and tipped it to himself. I don't know if you guys saw that. It was sick. Terry McLaurin's in my lineup. It's what I'm saying. Also, without Mike Evans, you need to figure out who the Tampa Bay Bucks are going to be throwing the ball to. And, I don't think it's Brashad Perriman. I'm definitely starting. You guessed it. I had to look at my notes because his name's brutal. Justin Watson. He had 8 targets after Mike Evans went out. He's 6'3". He fills the big wide receiver role. And I think he's going to be a solid play. I think he sees at least 5 more targets, especially with Chris Godwin seeing wide receiver 1 coverage. So Watson is a solid play to me.
Mm-hmm. That's what the fantasy playoffs are about. Justin Watson,
exactly.
Fantasy hero. Straight fantasy hero. Everyone's a fantasy hero if they can get it done for you in week 15.
Yeah.
All right, Stevie boy. How about we get some wide receiver starts out of you, baby?
Wow, our wide receiver starts are a bunch of young studs, man. I got AJ
All right,
Brown.
moratorium on the stud talk. We can't say the word stud anymore on this episode. If you say the word stud, you automatically lose. So no more stud.
We're getting flagged. AJ Brown versus Houston. Hey, man, he went off for you last week, and if you had him on your team, you most likely are advanced to the next round. And he's a tank. I'll take it from Jason Moore on the Fantasy Footballs podcast. He said that A.J. Brown was a tank. He continues to call him tank, and I agree. That guy can't be tackled, and he just looks huge out there. He's dominant. He's winning a lot of battles. He's getting so many targets, and he's Ryan Tannehill's guy going against Houston. And like I said, Drew Lock just tore them up last week, so I like A.J. Brown this week again to keep him in your lineup. Deebo Samuel versus Atlanta. Ryan mentioned Jimmy Garoppolo and Emmanuel Sanders earlier. I think Deebo Samuel gets his 5 straight games with 12 or more half PPR points. That's called consistency, people. And if you need consistency in Week 15, which I know you do to move on to the championship, he's got to be in your lineup. I think the 49ers are going to roll over the Falcons, and I think everyone's getting in the end zone. So start Deebo Samuel.
I kind of feel like Steve's talking down to me. Ryan, would you like to share a message with any of our female... Oh, wait, wow, we're already hitting the time here. All right, let's go. Never mind a message for our female viewers. Ryan, give us your wide receiver sits.
Yeah, for one, I'm sitting Robbie Anderson. I don't like the Thursday night game, especially against a tough Baltimore Ravens defense. I mean, I feel like that's seemingly a slam dunk sit to me. Robbie Anderson's got a real tough matchup, so I'm definitely not playing him. Here's the big one, though. I'm sitting Stephon Diggs against the Los Angeles Chargers.
Diggs?
I love Stephon Diggs as much as anybody on the internet, right? I will tweet out just videos of him just doing random Stephon Diggs stuff.
Yeah, all those Rule 34 videos that you have of him?
Listen, we're not going deep into the internet here. But Stephon Diggs is either going to get covered by Casey Hayward because Adam Thielen's not playing, or Adam Thielen's going to be playing and his targets are going to seemingly get cut in half. And I don't like that at all. So I'm tempering major expectations of Stephon Diggs, which hurts for me. He's on my fantasy team, the team that has Mike Evans. Do I start one of my starts? Who knows? But I'm not starting Stephon Diggs.
Steve, give us your wide receiver sits in a hurry, please.
We're sticking with the themes. Sitting your studs. Odell Beckham not reliable anymore, even in a good matchup against Arizona. Obviously, is injured. Baker Mayfield. All the scrutiny this week talking about the medical staff. Sitting Odell Beckham and Jamison Crowder, another Jet in your lineup against Baltimore. The last 3 games have been awful. He's got like 7 catches, less than 60 yards in really good matchups that include Cincinnati, Miami, etc. Those are really good matchups, and he has not come through. So against Baltimore in a really bad matchup, he's definitely on my bench with Robbie Anderson, like Ryan said.
Steve gets another touchdown. That's 21-0. I'm gonna read you the tight end starts. Steve has Higbee and Everett. I don't even know who those people are.
No, Higbee, Ryan, if Everett is out.
All right, so then Ryan has O.J. Howard, and then the sits, Steve has Austin Hooper, and then Ryan has sitting this week the tight end that has inspired a nation to become greater than it would. To all become unified so that all the individual pieces can create one large piece and be better together than they could ever be apart. He's a man known as Jacob Hollister, who is responsible for curing polio. He's the man who found Osama bin Laden. He is the man who has given me the will to live. So, for that reason, and every other reason, Steve wins.
That's fine.
Battle in the trenches this week.
He's getting covered by the second best linebacker in the game. So, it's going to be a tough game for Jacob Hollister.
Yeah, but who does he practice against? The best linebacker in the game.
I know.
Baby boy.
I understand that. I'm not starting... I didn't even mention Greg Olsen because I don't even think he's playing. I'm not starting Ian Thomas.
Is Greg Olsen still alive?
I'm not starting Ian Thomas, that's for sure. So...
Guys, I have an idea for an off-season battle in the trenches where we act like it's 2009.
We just did. Steve started me to start Gilgamesh against the Eagles. He's going to be terrible.
Gilgamesh sounds like an evil villain.
Yeah. He's going to be running against the Eagles. He's already a villain.
Hey, we should water bet this one. Let's go the starts and the sets. Whoever gets more right this game has to do something in the last week.
Listen, Steve already...
I'll give you the hot sauce if that's what we have to do.
What do you mean you'll give me the hot sauce? You already owe...
I owe the hot sauce. I do owe the hot sauce.
All right, guys, we don't have time for this. Make sure you subscribe, like us on Twitter. I don't know what you do. But ring the bell so you get these notifications every week when we upload. And at Bootleg Fantasy, at Steve 2.0, at Jonders FPT, at Climb the Pocket. Until next week. Bye, everybody. Get home safe.